I am so over tipping. It's gone too far.
So your total is going to be $25.91, and then when you do that 15% tip, it's $3.89.
Can I just give you cash?
Sorry, I already ran it through.
Why?
I have a question for you. What's the biggest tip you've ever left for a service worker? 15%? 20%? Gasp, 25%?
I am not tipping anywhere where they ask me to tip before I experience the service.
Or are you of the mind, like some people now, that tipping has gotten out of hand and opt out completely, awkwardly hitting that no tip button while smiling and avoiding eye contact as the iPad slowly turns around?
Not proud of it, but man enough to admit it, I have become so good at pressing that no tip button when you turn that screen around towards me. Why? Because you did absolutely nothing. When I walked up to the counter, you just stared at me.
So whether you always tip or never tip or somewhere in between, you might be surprised to learn that you're probably not getting the full story behind that percentage lurking at the bottom of the bill.
It's not going through because it's asking you to tip. I was like, oh. And he was like, press the bottom right corner. And I was like, the no tip? And he goes, yeah, we don't get those tips anyway. The owner keeps them. We don't get paid enough.
And every once in a while, a customer comes along who leaves so much money on the table that it changes a server's life forever.
Somebody left a $700 tip for her baby girl, and I think the total was like $32 of the bill. Not unheard of. People love blessing people all the time.
But what happens when a life-changing tip causes so much chaos that a good deed gets punished and someone ends up fired?
Here's Christoph Waltz to fire you in a weird accent.
You're fired?
So picture this, you're a single mom in suburban Georgia. You just dropped your 4-year-old son off with his loving grandma, so you can work another 8-hour shift as a server at the local Olive Garden. It's a chill job, but the personal stakes couldn't be higher. It's only been a month since you finally made enough money to get off food stamps and buy a car just to get to work, so you do everything you can to keep this job. Because without this job, you can't support yourself or your child. Now one day, you're servicing the tables in your section, refilling water, taking orders, and running food from the kitchen. When one of your regular customers closes out, you clear the table, pick up the check, and you can't believe your eyes. The tip line above the total, usually filled out with a, like a scribbled $5 or $10 if you're lucky, reads $700. Your exhausted mind floods with joy because this extra money means you can breathe for the month finally, maybe even give your child a little more stability. But when you excitedly show your manager the $700 tip, his hostile reaction is gut-wrenching. He tells you you're only getting 20% of the total of the bill, not 20% of the tip of the bill. But the next day, when you come into work to collect the rest of your tip, you don't get it. Instead, you get fired. And when you start asking questions, your boss calls the police to handle you. Welcome to the chaos. Oh, hi, hello, it's Swoop, and welcome to the dark waters of the Suspool, the place where everything and everyone is sus. Maybe even us. Come on in, the water's fine. Welcome back, Suspirians. Grab your calculators and credit cards because the hidden fees in today's story are so sus we might have to pay this bill over time.
But we didn't order gratuity.
Yeah, that's automatic with the hookah.
What is it? What is it?
Gratuity's my tip.
If you're new here, welcome to my second channel. On my main channel, Swoop, I do full-length deep dives, and over here, we dip. We skinny dip into the dark waters of the cesspool where everything is unhinged, so welcome to the chaos. Okay, you're taking a peek in my brain, and I'm like, I want to tell this story today, and that's what we're doing. Also, on my main channel, I just posted a brand new Swoop doc. We are investigating Dr. Oz, and it is the most intense and unhinged piece that we have done to date. It is also my biggest production that I have done on a Swoop doc to date. Thank you so much to everyone who's watched it so far. I appreciate you so much, and to all of the amazing comments. We really worked so hard on the production for that. We actually filmed on location. We're on location in like a hospital set. If you're into mind-bending, dark and twisted tales, or sometimes very unserious stories because we just need an escape and a break from everything, subscribe to this channel. Bring a towel, tell your friends, and go ahead and tip the like button $100. But when she goes to cash out, instead of dollars, it's actually 100 cats slapping her in the face with their murder mittens. Huge thank you to everyone for hyping this video. If you didn't know, that's a feature on mobile. When you're looking at the comments bar, if you just swipe over, it'll give you an option to hype this video. And actually, while we're here, over 30% of you who regularly watch week after week aren't yet subscribed, and you might even think that you are. I get so many comments from people saying that you thought you were subscribed. So double check, turn on notifications because it's time to lock in, honey. You can also join our Patreon community for exclusive access to 4 more videos per month. That's 4 more exclusive, uncensored, unfiltered videos per month, plus the entire back catalog of videos only available on Patreon, including the podcast, extended episodes. I have free tiers. You get a lot of free content as well as additional support tiers. So thank you to everyone. And we are almost at 5,000 members on Patreon, which it's incredible. Now, real quick before we dive in, I've got a spicy question. When's the last time you treated yourself? And no, I'm not just talking about skincare and a bubble bath. I've got just the thing to make you sing, honey, and why I am so excited for today's sponsor, Bellesa. My friends at Bellesa and I are literally sending out free toys or gift cards for toys for everyone who signs up to my giveaway. Listen, we love free gifts around here, shipped and delivered in very discreet plain boxes so you can feel confident and private. Now, y'all have heard me gush about how much I love Bellesa. Bellesa is a by women company for all things personal wellness. And what I love most, I mean, besides their toys, obviously, is that Bellesa's mission is all about empowering you to embrace, explore, and celebrate you on your terms, no stigmas attached. Now, I've got some goodies in their very discreet cases, so you'll just have to tap my link to see what's inside, but some of my favorites are the Flutter Vibe that has dual stimulation with added precision and fluttering, and yes, we love it. There's also the Thump, which is basically like the masterclass of toys because it basically does it all. It vibes, it suctions, it thumps. It is amazing, okay? Just take my word for it. Now, both of these babies are made with premium quality super soft silicone, are waterproof and rechargeable. They also have this incredible Thermo Vibe, which is a mind-blowing full spectrum experience that lets you play with fire and ice. It has both a heating and cooling function that reaches a toasty 107 degrees Fahrenheit and cools down to an exhilarating 60 degrees. Also, you have to check out their LGBTQ+ collection. It's literally curated to celebrate every body, every identity, everything in this section is designed to help you explore, connect, and feel empowered in your personal journey. Actually, I'll say Bellesa is so dedicated to empowering you that let's say you have like a mischievous little fur baby dog around who maybe accidentally destroyed your toy. Bellesa's policy is to replace all dog destroyed toys in exchange for a cute little photo of your pup, and I just love that. I'm telling you, friends, do not miss this huge giveaway. Everyone who has ever gotten something from Bellesa, when I see in the comments, is always saying, oh my gosh, I love them so much, and yes, I understand. Same, honey. So tap my link in the description because my friends at Bellesa and I are literally sending out free toys or gift cards for toys to everyone who signs up to my giveaway. So treat yourself, honey. You deserve it. Okay, strap on that swimsuit, grab your nose plugs, and let's dip into the cesspool. You may be familiar with the subject of today's cesspool from their endless breadsticks or family-style ambiance. And yes, Olive Garden has splashed down in the cesspool like a saucy meatball. And yes, this is deeply unserious today, okay? Or is it?
On nights when Dad works late, we'll treat ourselves a bit at Olive Garden.
Ooh, breadsticks.
It's gonna be serious, but it's also part of it is gonna be very unserious, if that makes sense. Hi, future me. So I am working through the edit on this project. You're gonna see me pop up a few times because I know we just do little skinny dips on these stories, but I started looking into a few more elements of this, and there are some turns in this story that can't be fully verified, so it's just kind of one of those things. But I'll kind of present a little bit of that and some of the twists and turns of this later on, because there were a lot of questions that we're asking and some things that have kind of really divided the internet in kind of two halves in regards to this story. So we'll jump into that, and so you'll see my face pop up periodically throughout this. You know that cozy, welcoming restaurant atmosphere that makes you feel like everything's going to be all right while you enjoy a mildly overpriced butter noodle? Yeah, that's not the vibe of today's cesspool at all. Today's cesspool is much bigger than just one employee being fired from a themed chain restaurant by a sus manager. What I discovered about tipping culture and regulations in America is frankly shocking if you're not familiar with how the system is working. Now listen, I'm just gonna say I have no beef with Olive Garden as a restaurant. I always want to be very careful about that when I'm talking about businesses and stuff, because I don't know how much of it is a big corporation. I don't know how much is franchise. And then there are thousands to tens of thousands of employees who are working for the company and depend on their jobs. So I always want to be mindful about not just being like, oh, the entire company is awful. No, there's actually thousands of people who are probably incredibly hardworking individuals just trying to make it in this absolutely unhinged economy. So, but also aside from that, there is still the major corporation, and corporations have a naughty little habit of being bitches to their underpaid workers. But today I'm not coming for the company because I haven't looked into them, okay? If y'all know something about Olive Garden, you can leave it in the comments. That's not the point of today's story.
You guys have seen Olive Garden ads. The people act like they've never seen a restaurant or eaten food before. And then the yo-yos at home think Olive Garden is this magical place.
On July 31st, inside one particular Olive Garden in Georgia, the lunch crowd was just beginning to filter out when server Brooke Skye greeted one of her regular customers. But this wasn't just an ordinary visit to the OG, because when that regular finished his meal and signed his $32, it was $32, he decided to go, I don't know a reference, so I'm just gonna say Mr. Beast mode, except, without the whole human exploitation thing, and leave the server, Brooke, a 2,000% tip of $700. 700. Well, what started as a life-changing gratuity set off a chain of events so sus that she ended up fired from her job under extremely questionable circumstances. We're gonna get to it. And the floodgates of this cesspool opened like so many do, with a story time recorded in a parked car.
Hey, so I wanted to hop on here to give an update about the Olive Garden drama with my daughter. She was today indeed fired for her behavior from what happened yesterday. She received a $700 tip on a $30 tab from a regular customer that hadn't been in a while. Clearly wrote out $700 on the tip.
That's Bunny Williams, the server's mom. Okay, that's Brooke's mom. Brooke and Bunny, those names are I think that's so adorable. Now, this whole story broke on Facebook on June 1st when Bunny posted this 7-minute video that has reached nearly 200,000 views at the time of me looking at this on her page. Okay, so don't play with Facebook moms, okay? Especially Facebook moms of the South, okay? They hit different over there.
She says it's rude to pick up the tab while the customer's still sitting there, so she didn't notice it until after he left. And when she took it to the manager told her to put 0 in the tab because that was just too much money to hand out. It needed to be verified.
Okay, so we've got the check here. And I've zoomed in a bit and it says, "Hey Brooke, happy late Mother's Day. Haven't seen you in a long time. Glad I was able to stop by." So that seems like that's what the regular customer wrote on here. And then the check was for $32.18. And if we scroll down, they also wrote, "Here is something to help with your journey." It says, "Love and blessings, $700. And they wrote it out. And I really appreciate this as well. They wrote $700. So there's no mistake. The decimal wasn't on the wrong spot. They actually wrote it out in letters and then they gave the total. And I think that was really nice of them to make sure that it is be known. Okay? And the Lord said amen, $700, and then they signed the check. Now, according to Bunny's retelling of the story, it wasn't as simple as her daughter, Brooke, cashing out at the end of the day with the $700 that she was given, because management quickly took over the situation, and that's
Didn't tell her anything about how long it would take or if she'd even get her money or when she would get it once it's verified. So clearly she was upset because she's thinking that she's not going to get the money or doesn't know when she's going to get the money, and asked one of her coworkers to take the next table so she could regain herself. She knew that she was visibly upset and didn't want to greet her customers that way. Her manager then said to her that she's here to do a job, and if she can't do it, then she needs to leave.
She did not receive the $700. The restaurant decided that it was too much, that she needed to zero out the tab, and they were going to give her $6 and some change in cash.
There's no question that tip would be life-changing for any service worker practically, but for Brooke in particular, it could have been especially helpful. Bunny wrote on her original Facebook video post the following, quote, "She's been there a year and is a single parent with my 4-year-old autistic grandson," right? There's a lot going on in Brooke's life. For a single mother, raising a 4-year-old boy, period, that $700 $700 wasn't just a nice bonus, it was potentially life-changing for her and her son, as it could mean the difference like between getting the specialized care that he deserves or struggling just to keep the bills paid, right?
As an autism parent, something that people really don't tell you about is how expensive it is. And I mean, kids are expensive in general, right? But if you have a special needs child or a child on the spectrum, therapies, co-pays, specialists, you might need communication devices, and all of that adds up.
My daughter is working doubles. She's doing everything she can to support herself as a single parent. And when all of this happened, everything just kind of blew up. So I've always been able to help her, but I've always tried to push her to be self-sufficient. And when she takes 2 steps forward and then 3 steps backwards, then everybody has to get involved. Everybody's lifestyle changes.
The next day when Brooke clocked in expecting her money that she earned that was given to her, the manager made this situation that could have been great very bad and then made it worse. Like when a cook adds too much salt to a burnt chicken parm, okay? I'm not speaking from experience, I'm just saying. Although I love salt, let me be real, okay? But more, make it white, bitch.
Of course, she called me back hysterical, crying, because they just fired her.
That's so brutal. Like, she's going in expecting to work. She's excited about the $700 tip, and then she just gets fired.
She's struggling, single mom, all the things. I'm helping her raise my grandson, Kenzo, who's autistic. He's 4. So those are all the things that are going through her head, that she's trying so hard, just got her apartment a couple of months ago, and she's upset.
Explain to me how the same person who was so honest and gracious that she compelled a regular customer to leave a $700 tip is somehow the same woman who deserved to have the police called on her minutes after being fired. Why? Her tears falling too loudly on her work shirt? Did she make a breadstick uncomfortable by being a human being? These are the questions I have.
So she's like, I don't want to leave because why all of a sudden do I have a $700 tip and I'm fired the next day? So they tell her while I'm on the phone with her that they're calling the police.
And then they go to the police. They go to the calling of the police, which I'm going to speak on that in a bit.
She's like, good, call the police because you're stealing my money.
I need my money. Give me my money. Give me my money. You got my money. I earned the money. Give me my money. Give me my money. It's not that hard. Give me my money.
And I'm not the police, I'm not the law, but as far as I knew, if you're holding over $500, it is theft. That's considered theft. So I said, then stay there, wait for the police to come, let them determine if that is, stealing or not.
Listen, I have thoughts and feelings. I will say that Bunny is very much like, I don't know the law. I don't know how this works. It sounds like it could be theft, but I don't know. Don't want to misspeak. Don't want to give bad advice. So just stick around, gather some information.
So I hang up with her. She's upset. I told her, don't even say another word to them.
Smart.
Be in your little space and wait for the police.
Very smart. Very smart. Nothing. Just nothing. Say nothing. Say no. Ooh, I love that pink on her nails. Say nothing. Very smart.
So I just got off the phone with her and the police did come. They did feel like she was in the right.
Okay, so now what's going on, right? So are we looking at wrongful termination lawsuit? What are the circumstances? Again, I don't have enough information to know if that is a possibility that they could pursue.
Although they could fire her at, their discretion, I believe Georgia's a work at will state, they still do believe that it was a wrongful termination and that she should probably get a lawyer.
Right there. Probably get a lawyer.
Of course, she called me back hysterical, crying, because they just fired her.
That's that. So I wonder if that's something that they're going to pursue. It sounds like the police are saying, you might have recourse here, you might have an option. Might be worth considering. And I imagine there's something, I don't know what's coming for that manager's job, okay? There's only so long you're going to stick with that job and someone's going to be coming like I'm coming for that all-you-can-eat soup, salad, and breadstick lunch special, okay? Don't play games with me, child. Don't play games with me, okay? Ooh, that special, though, I'm just saying, my mom and I did that once. This was like a long time ago, and ooh, it hit just right. But back to the story. It turns out Brooke's firing may have even been a retaliatory response to her repeatedly holding this manager accountable for inappropriate conduct in the workplace, allegedly.
About a month ago, she was waiting in the front to get a table, and there was a waitress coming through, and she said to everybody, watch out, there's a waitress coming, because they were all crowded in the front. And the same manager said to her, you need to watch out, because and she's like, Mommy, he made a gesture. And my coworker was like, well, what is that supposed to mean? And he says to her, well, she's wide. I said, what the? What?
Now, shortly after Bunny's first video, Alabama mom talker known online as Mama Tot shared the story with her 12 million plus followers, and suddenly there was no putting this Parmesan back on the block.
Olive Garden, I love you, honey, but I gotta know if this is accurate or not. So I was being nosy over there on the book face, and I come across Bunny Williams' post. She's a mom whose daughter was working at this particular Olive Garden, I believe is in Atlanta. Listen to this and keep watching, because I got the screenshot at the end.
You gave an $8 tip. What the hell are you looking for? I gave an $8. Okay, I'm gonna bring the food back. I'm gonna bring the food back. Okay.
Hi, Future Me Back. So there's going to be some shifts in this story a little bit with the way some people view this. There is an alleged friend that's going to enter the chat, and there are people in some comments, but of course the comments are just anonymous names, no way to verify them whatsoever. So just buckle up, okay? There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in this story. When the Southern Belle influencer Mama Tot shared Brooke's story, she also shared Brooke's Cash App on Facebook, allowing Brooke to find some comfort in the chaos as donations started pouring in from the outraged community.
Mama Tot asked for her Cash App. I gave it to her. I didn't come on here looking to make my daughter a whole bunch of money. But if somebody can support her because the people that are responsible for this had made this happen, then so be it.
Now, at the same time, however, the parent company of the restaurant was allegedly giving Brooke the classic, corporate piggyback, circle back, run around for her tip, as Bunny tells it.
She started to make too much money to get off food stamps. To stay on food stamps. And I told her I was actually proud of her for that. Now that she's lost her hourly rate plus her tips, she has to reapply for everything.
I can't imagine. That is so brutal. I can only imagine that it just feels like it's just things hitting her from every different direction. And most of us have been through really tough stuff in life. And sometimes it just feels like, these waves, but to go from such a high, right? Such an extreme of feeling like someone out of the kindness of their heart was offering a very nice gesture of a large $700 tip and feeling like, you know what? I might be okay. I might be good this month, maybe for a couple of months. To go from that high to then losing your job and losing the tips and all of this stuff is just, it's brutal.
Got her down that she has to go back and do that. But she can't do that because she does not have a separation notice.
She can't go back to potentially apply for food assistance or anything as far as unemployment because they haven't given a notice that she's no longer there.
She has logged into the portal and she is still active in their system. She has called the parent company, I believe it's Darden, and they said that she needs to call the store and have the manager separate her.
Imagine her having to call the manager who called the police on her so that she can get the proper notice on her in the portal so that she can apply for assistance.
She was fired yesterday. So now she's not able to file for unemployment, delay. She's not able to file for food stamps for her and the baby, another delay.
And those types of delays can make a monumental difference between her well-being and her child's well-being. And I'm not gonna, some people want to be like, oh, it's just a day, why don't you just, no. One day alone can really set somebody back, especially in this economy. One day alone, even if financially there's a little bit of a cushion and she could stretch for a day or she has somebody to lean on, even in a situation like that, 1 day delay is 1 day of a monumental anxiety. Now, don't you worry, Suspirians. A ton of the now hundreds of thousands of viewers took matters into their own hands, as the internet does, by calling to, let's just say, make a reservation at the restaurant.
They're not picking up the phone because all of her aunties and uncles on the internet have blown up Olive Garden in Fayetteville. So that's not my problem. That's not my problem at all. But people are genuinely invested in what's happening right now because it's happened to them. It actually happened to me 30 years ago.
Y'all already know I had to check out the latest Google reviews on that location. So I counted about 15 one-star reviews since Brooke was fired. Quote, terrible manager. Another one, poor management, and of course, give her back her money. 700. I love how this person just like saying 700 over and over. It's like, say 700 3 times while looking in a mirror and a moral conscience will appear in the manager's brain. But I think my favorite review is this petty university, essentially dissertation with 5 stars that reads, and I quote, 5 stars, whatever. I ordered $700 in food and they will accept waiting 120 days to collect payment. Everyone should try it. It's petty. But here's the thing. That's another key part of this story. So the management was allegedly telling Brooke that she'd have to wait anywhere from 1 to 120 days to receive the money from her $700 tip. 120 days. What is that, 30, 60, 90? That is damn near 4 months. That's 4 months. She could have to wait up to 4 months to get her tip. According to Bunny, quote, she took the handle and finished her shift. Later, they said they could give her 20% while the rest was reviewed. And I believe that means 20% of the bill. I'm not sure if that's or 20% of the tip. One manager said 1 to 2 days. Another said up to 120 days.
Breathe on your own time. I don't pay you to breathe.
You hardly pay us at all.
Now, I am really curious. Are there any servers? Are you actively a server or formerly a server in the chat, or anyone who worked for Olive Garden, or any restaurant managers? I'm very curious as to how this actually works when it comes to the protocol of when you pay out a full tip or when you might have to hold it, and how long you typically hold it for, because I have seen a wide range of times that people have said that tips can be held if they're much larger tips, but it doesn't seem to be like something consistent that I'm finding. So I'm just curious. Leave a comment in the chat if you have any knowledge or experience with this, because I'd really love to have some more insight of what actually is standard protocol, and is this standard? Is this not standard? Because I know it can sound very shocking to, those of us who aren't working in that industry, but if this is normal, then there's that,
On Monday, she was fired at the beginning of her shift and was handed 2 pieces of paper that stated the tip policy, which included that employees are not to write on the actual tab, which she was instructed to do the day before.
So Bunny shared a photo of Olive Garden's policy on large tips that they gave to Brooke. That paper essentially says that when a tip is really, really big, like over $500 big, the company has to give the employee an arbitrary cap of a 20% tip on the total. So that would be on the $32 while they clear the rest of the tip, which is obviously a big difference. Quote, contact revenue accounting to process the remaining large tip amount. Email the credit card slip and T-log report with the request. Explain to the team member why the restaurant is taking this action using these talking points. So it's literally, these are the talking points that you're going to give to your employee. In the past, tip amounts over 100% of the value of the check have resulted in chargebacks to our restaurants. Now, my first question is that every single time? Did sometimes those tips actually go through? These are the questions I would be asking. Those chargebacks often occur months after the transaction. That would be like when someone accidentally tipped too much and then they're looking over their credit card bill and they'd be like, oh my gosh, I did not mean to charge that much and I am issuing a chargeback. Due to the size of this tip, we will be waiting up to 120 days to ensure the payment card issuer approves and pays the full amount. We will update you once we receive that notification from revenue accounting. Today, you will receive 20% of the check total as a tip, which was what, like $6 or $7? So basically they're saying, we're gonna wait and we're gonna see if the customer issues a chargeback because we don't wanna tip you out. We don't wanna give you, the cash or however they give it via the paycheck. We don't wanna give that to you because then if they charge back, now the restaurant's out the $700 and you have the $700 that you shouldn't have because it was a charge. See how this is going? So to an extent, I could see how this makes sense to be a company policy, right? The businesses also have to make sure charges go through and the money is handled correctly and they don't get screwed as well. But 120 days is just, again, that's 4 months. Like 4 months. That is a whole ass season. Like, you started in summer and now you're like in winter. Like That's a long time. You may have bypassed fall depending on when you started in the summer. So like, that's a whole season. And so I'm just kind of also curious because I felt like a lot of like credit cards, their chargeback windows were far shorter than 120 days. I feel like it's like 30 days, but I don't know. This is just what's going on in my brain, okay?
And winter is coming.
Now, here's a self-proclaimed hot take.
This is a hot take, but I agree with Olive Garden's actions when it comes to the $700. Just because somebody writes $700 on a tip line does not mean that, number one, that there's $700 in their account to be approved, and number two, that they won't charge that money back, and number three, that it's not a fraudulent credit card. So if that Olive Garden hands out the $7 to that server, and then the customer charges back that whole bill and says, I didn't mean to leave $700. That was a mistake. What is Olive Garden going to do then? Take the $700 back from the employee? Are they going to charge the employee $700? Are they just going to eat the $700? The answer to all of those questions is no. They're going to ask the employee, and chances are the employee spent it on their rent.
Now, on the other hand, though, the Department of Labor's Fair Labor Standards Act states the following, quote, under federal law, the amount due the employee must be paid no later than the regular payday and may not be held while the employer is awaiting reimbursement from the credit card company. That's the other thing is like, if there are chargeback situations, then all of you legal brains, let me know if you are familiar with this. Okay, just let me know. I haven't looked, again, we're just taking a dip. We're taking a dip in the story. So I don't know. Let me know if you know. But one TikTok lawyer, speaking of legal brains, Alex Mainetti, does say that she would be entitled to that tip even after being fired, which I would hope so, because you got the tip while you were employed. You should definitely get it, even if you get fired.
I mean, you could challenge it as a wrongful termination. I mean, if they're withholding, they're in breach of their agreement with the employee. They have to pay her the tip that she was left. People, I think, are confusing a wrongful termination with like a discrimination lawsuit. Like this, if it was a wrongful termination, she'd be entitled to potentially the types of money that she would receive if she maintained her employment. If they terminated her for something discriminatory, then she could get additional money beyond that. But here, I don't think it's a multi-million-dollar case. No, I don't think that. I mean, most people don't know this, but if she's an at-will employee, which she almost certainly is, an at-will employee can be fired for any reason, other than obviously not for discrimination grounds. The employer doesn't have to give you a reason if you're an at-will employee to be fired.
So, dear Suspirians, you might be asking, whatever happened to that $700 tip? I wonder. It couldn't be anything sus, now could it? Susan, put the breadstick down, Susan. What happened to the tip, Susan? Yes, I know the eggplant parmesan is incredible. Yeah, that's one of my favorite dishes. Well, but put it down. Put it down. What's going on, Susan? Let us know.
The customer did, in fact, say to my daughter that he was charged on Sunday $32, and by Monday it updated to $38 and some change, which he thought was very strange because he was looking to see the entire amount to come out of his debit card.
Oh, it's a debit card. Okay, so that would be coming out immediately, very immediately, but like a lot faster than a credit card.
He then said he saw my Facebook post that she was fired.
Wild. Can you imagine he's just watching this play out and he's like, what the hell? What the hell's going on? Why am I only been charged this? Why have I only been debited this? And now she doesn't have a job? Why?
And he immediately froze his card because then he thought it was fishy or that something was up because he already thought that why would there be another transaction? And if it was, and she was fired, would she even get the money?
And that brings up a very kind of eye-opening angle to this that I wouldn't have even considered, that he absolutely could look at, like, it was supposed to be $32 and then the tip, and instead there's a $38 charge, but there's no explanation for why it's a $38 charge because he didn't tip $6 to get to the $38. He tipped $700. And so now he's seeing this $38 charge and hears that she's fired, does not know why she's fired, and he sees like kind of a mystery charge that he wasn't expecting. Absolutely, that could make someone be like, oh, wait, I don't know what's going on here. I'm going to freeze my card. So you're like, oh, what's happening?
Anybody would think that. So he froze the card. And then sure enough, on Monday, after my daughter was fired, they ran the card for $693, but the card was frozen and the bank declined it. But
Can you imagine? They then go and run the card. How much did she say? $693. They ran his card for... Let me get my calculator out. Excuse me. Math is absolutely the thing that I am best at the least. That's how I like to say it. When I'm not good at something, I like to frame it in a positive. I am the best at math, the least. So 693 plus 38 equals 731. And what was the check again? It was 32. Somebody do the math. This doesn't feel right. This is weird. And they ran the car. I am confusion. And like, isn't that grouping the total amount into the bill itself and not the tip? How does this generally work with restaurants? If those of you who like kind of work in the service industry, let me know in the comments. Would it ordinarily be the charge is kind of ran for the actual bill and the tax and stuff, and then the tip becomes a separate thing? Although I guess it doesn't. I don't know. And this is a debit card. I don't like, something feels,
$3, but the card was frozen and the bank declined it, but it showed him that it was ran.
Wild. This is so messy. This is so messy. Welcome to the Olive Garden. Endless breadsticks and self-fulfilling prophecies.
Y'all, the person that left the $700 tip has entered the chat of the Olive Garden drama.
Why would there be another transaction? And if it was, and she was fired, would she even get the money?
There's a message. He says, hey, just wanted to give you the final update. After seeing everything going on, I locked my card in an attempt to block the tip from coming out. They updated the original charge of $32 to $38 and some change, so only a $6 tip. Then tried to charge an entirely separate transaction of $693. That's not normally how tips come out. So on top of my card being locked, my bank automatically flagged and declined the charge. I can confirm they did not get the money from me, only about $6. I'm really sorry you're going through this. I knew it was weird when I tried to ask for you specifically and they said your section was full when clearly it wasn't. I know we've talked separately about the money, so we're on the same page, but let me know if there's anything else I can do to help with your situation. Can attach a screenshot of the updated charge when I get off work. So that's nice. It sounds like they had a conversation. It looks like she replies, thank you. They told me it was no longer their concern, LOL. So that's nice that they've had a conversation about it. I'm hoping that, again, if he like genuinely intended to tip her $700 and knew that he could do that and was comfortable doing that, and therefore wrote that on the check, then I hope that he went ahead and somehow got her that $700 through a private means. There's another message. She says, people think you're my ex and this is a scam. Wow. Just don't know the full context of everything that's going on. Then he replies, this screenshot ain't gonna do none though. If people gonna think that, then that what they gonna think. They gonna say the message fake or anything. Should just stop listening to what everybody talking about and take the steps needed for real results versus responding to people on social media. But no, I am not your ex and I do not scam. And she replied, thank you for justifying that. Messy, 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 messy. By this time, there was a lot of different things flying around on social media, people speculating, of course. There's just so little information to go by. There were people that were claiming that the tipper was not actually like a regular customer. It was actually an ex-boyfriend of Brooks and that they were in on some scam together. Again, these are things that are just unverified claims. But I'm just like, making a note that was some of the discourse going online. The idea of this being a scam, I think, is generally the concept of somebody, whether it was a fraudulent credit card or somebody makes a large tip and then expecting the restaurant to cash out the tip to the server, and then they decline the charge on the card, or they do a charge back later on, and then the server and the tipper split the tip. That's how I've been reading a scam could be taking place. I'm not saying that's what's happening here. I'm just saying that's what people have said have happened with other situations.
There have been people telling stories that aren't true, calling this a scam, and I don't know anybody in their right mind. I guess the scam is you go into a restaurant, you know somebody, you run up a tab, and then you split it, something like that. This guy came with a credit card, wrote it down, not a credit card, a debit card, wrote the amount down, wrote what it was for, and I can't imagine any person that has worked somewhere for almost an entire year
bought a cash car from that same job, got an apartment 2 months ago from that same job, has paid all of her bills from that same job just to backdoor it for $350 to lose her livelihood and her job. Y'all, come on, make that make sense. And I think that's what upsets her the most. The stories and the lies and the people that she works with and people coming forward and saying that she's stolen before from other jobs.
I think this goes without saying again, if you are going to leave a very large tip, or really maybe any tip in general, and servers like tap in if you agree, I think the preference is for it to be done in cash. So it is very clear that this is the amount of money that you're intending to give to the server. But I know that that's not always, possible, and not everyone carries cash anymore. I mean, we are like largely a cashless society at this point. But that being said, that is a way for this to cut back on any questions that a restaurant might have, particularly if you go there intending to give a really large tip, but maybe also you don't intend to, you didn't know, you caught yourself by surprise too, and you're feeling really generous. I don't know. That's just kind of the discourse going on here in this very, very complex situation with not a ton of information. Allegedly, after getting on the phone with management, they didn't have a solid answer as to why they didn't just run the $700 tip in the same initial charge as the $32 bill and arbitrary $6 tip that they took the liberty of adding themselves. This is such a mess. I just feel like there was definitely a cleaner way to do this.
And she said to him, well, why would you run 2 separate transactions? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just do it all at the same time? And he didn't really have an answer for her. He didn't have an answer. And then I say to her, ask him about the $6. Is that legal? Are you supposed to just add your own tip? Is the manager just supposed to add their own tip based on their own assumption that the tip was too high? Just give her what you feel like she deserved? And then he just said, well, that's what we wanted to give you, 20%. And she said, well, the customer was not happy about that. And he wants to hit that $6, although it's $6, was not approved. He told her to tell the customer to take it up with her bank, and there's nothing else that they need to do at this time with her.
So even though it's Olive Garden's privately held policy to give only 20% of the bill at first, was this action potentially illegal? From what I can find, the legal language here is kind of tricky, especially since they did end up trying to run the remaining tip amount the next day.
The law states that you cannot change the total amount on a tab. Once that customer has signed it, that is a legal document. You can't change it. They can't just say, well, we're going to give you 20% today and hold it for up to 120 days. That is illegal. It's illegal. You can't just make up policy. You have to follow the law.
Now, there's one labor law that states, and I quote, an employer may not keep tips received by its employees for any purposes, including allowing managers or supervisors to keep any portion of employees' tips, regardless of whether or not the employer takes a tip credit. Now, that makes sense, right? The employer should not be able to touch your tips unless somehow there's like some contractual arrangement for it. But I feel like, it's tipping, there's a lot of this stuff that just seems like a mess and rarely in favor of the server. Now, thinking about all of this, so I'm not sure, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't believe that there's a strong legal case here per se, because it's not like the management was intentionally trying to steal Brooke's tip, at least from what we know of the story. But I mean, like, we'll never know what they would have done with that $694, $690, $694, because the charge never went through. That said, though, the delay in processing the charge still had very real consequences for Brooke's life. And Brooke herself made a post on Facebook writing the following, quote, to make matters worse, I never received the tip out compensation that I earned through my efforts. As a single parent raising a child with autism, every dollar matters, and losing both my job and the wages I worked for has placed a significant financial and emotional strain on my family. People across the internet were more upset than basically I was when I found out that endless breadsticks aren't really endless, and don't ask me how I found that out. One former employee whose video got over 1 million views on TikTok even called for a widespread boycott.
But you can't take away her $700 tip and fire her for taking a minute to collect herself. You only get 3 tables at Olive Garden when you work there anyway. So she was giving up a table after she had just been denied a $700 tip. That's how upset she was. And then you fire her? Bye-bye, Olive Garden. Not that I've really eaten there in the past 10 years anyway, because you people are disgusting.
So on June 3rd, amidst the widespread backlash, Olive Garden's social media account entered the chat. Restaurants entered the chat, leaving a very official, proper company statement in the form of a TikTok comment. You know, restaurant accounts want to act all cheeky in the comment section for free engagement until they're being accused of something, and then they want to bury it in the comment section, and we live in a very deeply unserious world. Here it is. Quote, "We have verified that the tip amount was declined due to insufficient funds." If that's true, then the guy didn't cancel his card. He said he canceled his card. He didn't. He had insufficient funds, and they could. Who's telling the truth here? Back to the quote, "This team member was not terminated because of the tip that was left on the check, and we have shared all this information directly with her." That still doesn't address the fact that Brooke was fired for having, I guess, emotions in the workplace by a manager who allegedly was already looking for a reason to let her go.
"God, you lied?" She's like, "Yeah." She said, "I was so offended. And so I went to tell another manager, and she confronted him and said, what did you say to her? Like, you shouldn't talk to her like that." And he said, "Well, I was just telling everybody there's a wide load coming through." And her and her coworker were like, "No, you called Kayla wide. You said she was wide." And he said, the other manager, which is actually underneath him, said, "Well, you should apologize because that wasn't very nice of you to talk to her like that." And he says to her, "Well, I apologize if you feel that way. That's not what I meant." We all know that's projection. He meant what he said, and he said what he meant. So from that point on, she's been saying it this whole month. He's coming for me. He's coming for me. And my daughter can be dramatic. You know, it is what it is. I'm like, okay, well, just remain professional. Do your job. Do your job and go home. You have a child to raise. But now I feel like this was the perfect excuse since she got upset yesterday. He was probably pissed off at her for telling on him.
Okay, remember how I said that there was an alleged former friend? So this person made a video making claims against Brooke and claiming that there was actually likely a scam going on. Again, none of this is something that I could verify. I would never want to make that type of accusation on someone who don't have enough information. But this was the type of, it was this video that sent the internet into sort of a split over how people thought. I think still overwhelmingly most people are on the side of Olive Garden should have given the tip and that Brooke was harmed by the situation. Again, we just don't know enough information. So this is the discourse that was going around online, and there's allegedly messages from people who worked at the Olive Garden as well. None of that is verified. So this is just kind of where we are in giving a fuller picture as to the discourse around this on social media.
Good morning, y'all. This has to be said because they're scamming. Let's get into it. For one, this is Kayla Sky Benjamin. She's from Dallas, Texas. She moved to Georgia because she is a scammer. She ran out of Dallas, Texas because she pretty much couldn't stay here without anybody not trusting her. She stole out of her friend's car money, lied and said she got a BBL with it, all of this good stuff. She got fired from her job for stealing, went to jail. That's what this picture right here is for, and this charge is for. Theft by conversion. She stole out of her last job's cash register. If you go to the comments, you'll see this, which is 100% true about her being fired before, because when I went out there to Georgia, just December 2025 up to January, I was there from December to January for my daughter's Christmas break. She got fired. I wouldn't even say she got fired. She was on a leave because her attitude. She was waiting to see if she was going to get her job back the whole time I was out there. Then when I left, I believe January 2nd, that's when she got her job back.
To be fair, we only have a very limited amount of information and context here, okay? I will point that out. We obviously don't know the whole story.
But you called the police because that girl came on the property because she was told to come in to have a conversation, and you had the audacity to fire her. If the customer wrote a wrong tip, okay, he meant $70 or $7, but not $700, don't you think that customer would actually dispute the ticket? And another thing, I do understand, as somebody in management position in restaurants, we have a duty to protect our customer. But once it's written on there, and they wrote it with their hand, the only thing my job to do is put it in there, and then if it's a dispute and it's a legal issue, we take care of it then. Then she deserves to be fired.
My immediate reaction when I was first looking at the story is thinking, like, I just feel really bad for Brooke not getting the tip and then getting fired. Of course, we don't know the circumstances of, like, what happened at the Olive Garden when she got fired. We don't know. We just don't know. We don't know. So there's only so much you can even speculate. I am more interested in, and why I wanted to cover this topic, I'm more interested in tipping culture, fair wages that are given to workers, which we're going to get into all of that in a bit. And I'm curious about the Olive Garden's actual policy. Was that communicated to their employees in a clear, effective manner? Is that a standard type thing? Those are the types of questions that I have amidst all of the kind of complexity of this whole story.
But in the most unsurprising twist of all time that was totally predictable, especially in today's climate, on top of the backlash towards this Olive Garden, the virality of Brooke's story also unearthed a wave of disgusting backlash towards her family on the internet, definitely in the form of very obvious racist hate. Her mom, Bunny, who spoke out for her, and her 4-year-old autistic son. Yes, they targeted even the 4-year-old because, of course, I don't know what it is. It's like a special gift with some people. You're like, oh my, it's like you have this radar. It's like, oh my gosh, a non-white person. Doesn't matter what the non-whiteness is, but oh my gosh, non-white person, internet radar, must be racist, must be racist, must be racist. It's like actually sickening and exhausting and so annoying. And sometimes I'm just like, you know what, fuck. I don't care. I don't care anymore. I don't care. I mean, I do, but you know what I mean? Sometimes I'm just like, I can't, it will come back to you. Now, one comment under Bunny's Facebook post even read the following: your kind of people, we love that, you people. Your kind of people love to justify their behaviors, do they? That is the most backwoods reading sentence. The grammar alone, what do you mean you're in a comment section typing words? That's the grammar of how you write? What is happening here? Your kind of people, your look how it's spelled. Editor, can we zoom in on your? So basically, if I were to read this, you are kind of people love to justify their behaviors, do they? Is that a question? Are we making a statement are we being racist in a statement or a question? Are we unsure? Should I be racist here? Do they? I don't even know how to read that. And it's very funny. At this point, I could just skip over the racism part because your dumbass misspelling of your apostrophe tells me everything I need to know about you and your idiocy.
I just want to know, do people wake up and choose hate? Why? But for this person, they put that comment, I guess with the monkey and the chimping out, on a post about my grandson. But then I guess they just decided to scroll a little bit further and then they see my face. And now I'm a mid.
I hate it here.
So I'm guessing they're hiding behind their fake page because the white collar side of any affiliations they may have won't agree with the chimping out comment. But the white hooded side of anybody they may be affiliated with wouldn't agree that you think this brown girl is a baddie.
However, in the mix of messages from strangers online, Bunny was allegedly hearing from service workers who thanked her for speaking up about tipping practices and the power imbalance employees often face in restaurants, writing the following, quote, "So many people feel embarrassed, humiliated, silenced, or mistreated at work and never speak on it publicly." And that's very true.
My whole entire platform of this is what is fair, what is the law? And I really feel like both of those things haven't been met. The law, according to what I'm reading from the Georgia Department of Labor, has been broken, and how she was treated was clearly unfair.
I'm so over tipping. It's gone too far. And so here's my new perspective, my new strategy when it comes to tipping. Number one, I am not tipping anywhere where they ask me to tip before I experience the service. For example, I went and got a $9 smoothie the other day, and right when I was like ordering my smoothie, I was like, oh, I'll get the breakfast smoothie. Then they're like, okay, it's just gonna ask you a few questions. The answer is no. One, y'all haven't made my smoothie. 2, I haven't tasted my smoothie. 3, I don't even know if I'm gonna like this smoothie yet. Why am I tipping? Like, I'm not tipping.
The Suspool is really a microcosm of a much larger conversation about tipping practices, so much so that it reignited the online debate around tipping in general. There are so many sides to this conversation, but what really matters the most is that employees like Brooke Sky are getting paid a fair living wage. So I looked into it, and what I found was pretty shocking, to say the least.
Listen, this may ruffle some feathers, and I quite honestly don't give a f. We're experiencing a tipping epidemic in this country, and people have lost their minds. When I grew up, I was born in 98, okay? Whatever generation you want to consider me a part of, that's the year that I was born. It was normalized to tip when you were provided a service. So you would go to a restaurant, you would sit down, you would get waited on, you would leave a tip. I would get my nails done at the salon, acrylic little nails with my tips at 16 years old. I would throw her a $5 tip. She'd do a pedicure, I'd throw her a $5 tip. Now it is normalized to tip for everything.
If you look up tipping culture online, you may be surprised or delighted, depending on where you stand, to find hundreds of videos of people claiming that it is getting out of hand, with thousands of likes and comments agreeing with them.
Your total is going to be $25.91, and then when you do that 15% tip, it's $3.89.
Can I just give you cash?
Sorry, I already ran it through.
Why?
And I went to go pay, and I pressed no on a tip, and the transaction went through, and she said, you didn't tip me. I said, I know. I know. And I was very kind, very polite, right? She said, well, why not? And I said, well, I ordered a sandwich, and I'm getting it to go. There was, I didn't feel like there was a tip needed. She goes, well, everybody tips us.
Look at this shit. 30% on the low end, mid-range 40% tip, and then 50% tip. These people are trying to charge us an extra half of the original price as tip. Now, this tipping culture is getting out of hand.
Like, it makes sense to be irked by a charge that you weren't expecting, right? Especially when people's wallets are already stretched very, very thin in this economy, where it can feel like just going outside costs $100 to breathe. We actually even did a podcast episode on Patreon on the shocking rise of tipping percentages and tipping culture for jobs that traditionally never really took tips per se, or they took like really small. I'm talking about like a cashier where they're just standing at the cashier thing and they're like charging up the thing, and now they're asking for tips and like asking for a certain, some places they're like trying to build in a certain percentage, like 25% for the cashier. And like that is upsetting to a lot of people depending on where your mind is at with that stuff, right? And I mean, like, you think about like the World Cup that's been happening, like foreigners visiting America, like we're gagged, okay? Because like tipping, it's not a thing that happens in every single country, okay? It's really not.
Pay your staff like a better wage.
What I find weird is that I just get a bottle of water from someone and they're trying to get a tip for doing nothing.
We went out the other night and had a few drinks, and they were expecting a tip after every drink, so it's like, it can get expensive very quick.
In Japan, there's no tipping. I think the price without the tipping is already expensive. So with the tipping, I think it's way too much.
And so with that, like also just because things with the economy are so very sensitive, I think it's also tricky to tell people that they shouldn't be allowed to patronize a service-based business if they can't afford or budget for like a larger percentage tip. Like in some way that could feel like income shaming to people, to not be able to have like the luxury to be able to like go to a restaurant or something, or like a fast food place, or go to like a coffee shop. However, the reason everyone's confused about tipping, my general policy is like, if you can tip, tip. Like definitely if you can tip. And I think like at the very least, tip something, even if it's small, and just bake that into, if I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this thing, then there's going to be this percentage that's going to be added on it. So is that something that I can comfortably afford? Then great. If not, then maybe there is another avenue or something. And I think definitely if you feel like you can comfortably afford to tip, then definitely tip, and tip a little bit more if you can. That's kind of where I stand with it. However, the reason like everyone's confused about tipping kind of in general is because the laws themselves are confusing and borderline unethical, in my opinion. There's been like such a major change just in the area where I live, where this is ever since like everything shut down in 2020. There's not just like tip, but there's now additional service fee that like a restaurant is adding to it. And like, initially it was presented as it's because, you know, restaurants were taking such a hit during the panorama because things were closed down, right? But I knew, okay, once they start doing this, they're never gonna reverse it. It's just like once gas prices go up, they're not gonna reverse it the way back to the way it was before. There's been some places where I'll go and there's like the line for the tip amount, fine, that's what I'm anticipating. There's the line for like the service fee. I've gotten a little bit more used to that, but the service fee has now become like this mandatory additional. This one place I went to, it was like a 20 or 25% mandatory additional. So if I were to tip 25% and then the restaurant was putting like 20 or 25%, it was now getting to like 45 and 50% of my total bill being added in addition to it. So it was like a bill and a half, and that seemed deeply unhinged in my opinion. And I talked to the server and I was like, do you get a percentage of the service fee? And they were like, no, not at all. And so then I also found out that because a lot of customers, once they see that there's now this like 20% upcharge from the restaurant, not to the server, a lot of people will just pay that percentage and they will no longer tip because they're like, I came here thinking I was gonna like tip 20 or 25% and you guys have tacked on 20 or 25% just for the restaurant. And so a lot of people, as I'm learning and I was talking to the server, were like, oh, a lot of people no longer tip. And I'm like, well then if there's no tip, does the restaurant like at least share their restaurant fee to you? And they said no. And I think that's unhinged. And I think that is like deeply unethical. So it's leaving the service industry workers with far less tips than they would have had before. And I'm just kind of like, I mean, I hate the whole thing, but if restaurants are gonna do this, then just bake it into the prices so that when someone sits down and they're looking at the menu, you've inflated your prices 20 or 25%. I'm not saying that I think that people should do that either. I think that would still be unethical if that's just, you're just being gross with your prices. But I'd rather see it baked in there to where I'm looking at a menu, other people are looking at a menu, and it's like, these are the prices for the food. Am I willing to pay it or not? And if the answer is yes, then I will order and then I will tip. And there's less risk then for someone to be like, I'm not tipping on top of this fee. You know what I mean?
Let's get one thing straight. If you live in America, you have to tip. Servers here rely on tipping to make a living, and as long as that's true, if you don't do it, you're an asshole.
Did you know, here's a fun fact, that since the federal minimum wage is still whopping $7.25 per hour, businesses who allow their employees to accept tips are allowed to take up to $5.12 out of their hourly wage in what's called tip credits, meaning in the year 2026, it is possible for service workers to be paid basically as low as $2 per hour. And imagine if that restaurant was doing that service fee and they don't get a tip at all. Now, according to the legal self-help site nolo.com, quote, federal law allows employers, including those in Georgia, to claim a tip credit. The tip credit is $5.12 an hour, which means Georgia employers may pay tipped employees $2.13 an hour if the employee's hourly wage plus tips earned don't add up to at least $7.25 an hour. The employer must make up the difference. So I guess they're trying to make it up whole, but I still just, man, is this the best we can do? Is this the best we could do with this system?
Tipped minimum wage that allows restaurants to pay as little as $2.13 per hour in 15 states.
The restaurant industry has such thin profit margins. Oftentimes it could be like 3 to sometimes 10%. And so part of the way that they would be able to stay in business is by paying the servers less and relying on tips. If the restaurant had to pay them more, the restaurant themselves would be going out of business.
You can see how, in the case of Brooke Sky, getting a $700 tip is massive. But wait, just like my thumbnail often says, it gets worse. I also discovered that the very concept of tipping has deep roots in slavery. Shocking, I know. According to the Shriver Center on Poverty Law, quote, tipping proliferated in the United States after the Civil War when the restaurant and hospitality industries hired newly emancipated Black women and men, but offered them no wage, shocking, leaving them to rely on patrons' gratuities for their pay instead. Literally, why does everything circle back to racism? At least here in this country. Why is it? Why is that the foundation of like damn near everything? It's almost like our foundation for everything could just be compassion, humanity, love, taking care of one another. I don't know. Maybe those are good principles, but no. The roots of things all seem to come back to the color of somebody's skin. Quote, tipped workers of color continue to suffer the consequences of this legacy. In the restaurant industry alone, over 27% of Black workers live in poverty. About 37% tipped workers are mothers, and nearly half of these women are single moms. For a single mother, earning the tipped minimum wage often means going without.
For a single individual with no kids, on one income, minimum wage job, full time, you're looking at covering about 74% of your costs. 74%, that means 25% of your cost of living is not covered by a single job, a full-time job, on minimum wage.
None of this stress is necessary. In most cultures, nobody tips and everyone still gets their food on time. The only difference is their waiters get a steady income and no one has to argue about the bill.
And don't tip on the tax.
On one hand, some people believe tipping enables business owners to underpay their workers, so they refuse to tip as a form of protest.
What's your service industry hot take?
We all need to stop tipping right now. It's unnecessary. It's a silly thing that we do, and all it does is encourage people to pay us less. If we can get an actual wage with insurance, I'm totally fine with not getting $10 from you from your check.
On the other hand, some people argue that tipping is what allows service-forward businesses to stay afloat while keeping menu prices affordable, essentially passing that extra cost on to those customers who can afford to pay a little bit more.
Everybody wants a living wage until they see how much it costs to pay everyone an actual living wage. Right. They don't want to pay for it out of their pocket.
You see, I would argue that everybody wants to own a business until they realize how much it costs to run a business. You see, if your business runs and depends solely on the exploitation of your workers, you're a shit business owner. Stuff like this is exactly why I hate tipping culture, and this is coming from someone who tips. And if I don't have cash on me, I'm sending it straight to your Cash App. I'll Apple Pay it to you.
And I think the real tea here is that if you're giving a restaurant your business but not tipping, I think the only person that you're hurting is the underpaid employee who's serving you. So again, tip if you can. Every bit counts. These folks are working hard to serve in very tough times, and no one looks out for each other better than we do for our own communities.
People who say they don't tip their server because the restaurant should be paying their employees more actually like piss me the fuck off. Like, you're so ridiculous because you're pretending to care about an issue that you don't give a fuck. Because if you were actually mad about these greedy corporations, then you wouldn't be putting money in the pockets of those greedy corporations. The only person you are hurting in this scenario when you go into a restaurant and don't tip your server is your server. Like, the corporation is still getting paid. Like, you still paid for your meal.
Honestly, this whole debate has made one thing very clear to me. People at the top, but I'm talking about the top, and I'm talking about at the top, and I'm talking about at the top, would rather watch average workers fight each other over tips than actually change the system that makes tipping feel necessary in the first place. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, because I don't think there's one simple answer to all of this. There's many like moving parts here, but like I don't think there's like, in order for someone to be able to work full time and be able to survive, I keep asking like, why the hell should billionaires keep getting richer, keep getting more billions off of our backs when we, the people, are the ones who are keeping this country alive in the first place?
A toxic tipping culture in America.
Okay, but let's be very frank here.
What?
Many people tip because they feel pressured, because for some reason other poor people are also mad at them for being poor when it's the employer's fault.
Now, let's bring it back to Brooke Skye, the Olive Garden employee at the center of this story. With all of the online attention, she started a GoFundMe page to help support her young son while she finds new work, and the internet did not disappoint. Currently, she's already raised a little over $3,000 at the time that we checked. Plus, Brooke's mom says that she's already found a new job.
I want to first start off with great news. My daughter has found another job. She's been working there for about 2 or 3 days now, and she loves it. So she went out and immediately secured employment, which was what was supposed to happen.
And if I had to leave a tip for you, Susperians, I'd say give 100% good vibes to the people who serve you and your community, and be sure to return the favor and serve when you can too. Okay, Susperians, time to step out of the dark waters of the Suspool. Grab a towel and dry off. That's what I got. What do you think of this story? What do you think of tipping? What do you think of tipping culture? What country are you coming from that you're watching this? What is it like where you are? Do you have that little service fee as well? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments of this. If you want to hear more stories like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel. Tickle the like button for more. Let me know in the comments if you have any stories that you would like to dip into. Thank you again to everyone for hyping this video. I so appreciate it. I also have a brand new full deep dive swoop doc out on my main channel. It is linked below and in the pinned comment. It is by far the biggest production I have done for a swoop doc on my channel. We worked so hard on this. We filmed on location. We have new sets, all kinds of things going on in there. No AI. Someone tried to accuse me of using AI, and I'm like, can you just like, you don't know what you're talking about, and going out here and accusing people who work really hard. I bust my ass really hard to build the visuals that I do on all of these pieces, particularly my swoop docs. There was no AI, people, okay? I was on set, I was on location. If I took a still photo, it was because it was on location, like at a hospital set. Maybe don't just go around accusing people of don't know anything about. But yeah, we worked really hard, so I hope you enjoyed that piece. It's on Dr. Oz and all of the absolute insanity and unhingedness. It is equally, or if not more unhinged than the Dr. Phil story. If you saw the Dr. Phil piece, that one really popped off. It was like really incredible because we put a lot of time and work into the Dr. Phil piece as well. Huge thank you again to our channel members here. I appreciate all of you so much. And to our Patreon members, we are almost at 5,000. I think we're like around 5,000 Patreon members, which is incredible. You can join our Patreon community for exclusive access again to 4 more videos per month. Plus you get the entire back catalog of all of the content that's only available on Patreon, including the podcast and extended episodes, uncensored versions of stuff. I have free tiers where you can get free content and be on the newsletter to know anytime I'm investigating or researching or posting any videos or anything. And there's also additional support tiers for those of you who want to join that way. Of course, we've got the Suspool collection, the Valid Ribcage collection is in the merch shop, all of those good things. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Bluesky. Instagram is where I'm most active. Instagram stories, I'm in there a lot. So thank you to everyone for following me on Instagram. Also, don't miss out, tap my link in the description because my friends at Balesa and I are literally sending out free toys or gift cards for toys to everyone who signs up to my giveaway. So treat yourself, honey, you deserve it. Thanks for coming for a swim. Have a good day out there. Beware the creepy, keep it cute, and I'll see you next time in the Suspool. Swoop!